Barn Talk, where the truth takes a stroll. Life's little lessons with a heart full of soul. From sunrise chores to the good Lord's plan, it's Roger's Barn Talk. Pull up, my friend.
Hello and welcome to Real Barn Talk. Tonight's going to be a little different. We're going to talk about a story that and a trip that happened with us. We got a chance to go take a vehicle up to the Smoky Mountains to Rod Run. I had a 34 Ford truck that it was a nice old truck, and I bought it from Jimmy Wells, a man that I really think a lot of, or thought a lot of, and he's passed away now, but uh, super nice guy. But anyway, I bought this truck from him and I'd had it for quite some time and I loved it and enjoyed it, but I was ready to move on and get something different. And so we decided to carry that one, and Sean had one that he was going to carry. And so we take off and go to Rod Run up in Pigeon Forge. And man, what a nightmare that place can be during Rod Run, man, trying to get around and traffic's crazy and all that. But anyway, we go and we get there and it's a little early and we unload our trucks and park them and mine and his too. They just started covering them up. Just people looking at them and I thought, man, this is pretty amazing. Anyway, they sit there and we hadn't been there a couple hours probably, and this gentleman came up, an older gentleman, him and his wife come up and they were looking at it and I really didn't even have the description on it yet. I had a for sale sign, but I didn't have the description as far as year model and that kind of stuff and running gear and things like that. So anyway, the man asked me, says, "What year model?" And I told him it's a 34. And he said, "I've never seen an extended cab." I said, "Well, it's a retro mod." I said, "It's been built to be that." I said, "It's actually, on a Ford Ranger chassis." And, and I told him, I said, it's been custom built, but he said, "I love it." He said, I've been wanting something like this, but he said, "I never had seen one like this." And we're gonna get some pictures. We have some pictures of it that Dana's gonna insert into this thing somehow. We're learning how to do all that, but we'll show you the pictures of that truck and then on the trailer and as we head up there. But anyway, this man, we talk a few minutes there, and he never even asked me the price. He just started looking at it and uh, and so while him and his wife was looking at it, two other gentlemen come up and started looking at it, and they start talking to me, and so this older gentleman walks over and says, "How much is this thing?" At that point, and he's seen them other guys talking, and I told him, and he said, "I'm just going to take it." And the other two guys, "Wait a minute, we're and I said, "It's so." I said, "I'm sorry, but this," I said, "He's already been here looking at it." And I said, so we hadn't been there just, I mean, maybe an hour, maybe a couple hours the most, and it's done sold. And so the gentleman says to me, he says, "I'm not a dealer, nothing like that." He said, "I'm buying this strictly for me and my wife to go to car shows and go cruise ins and go out to eat in and things like that." And I said, "I understand that. That's what I do with mine." And I said, "That's what this truck's done since I've had it." And anyway, he says, "I need for you to do me a favor." He said, "I'll add 500 to what you asked for," because he didn't even try to negotiate. He didn't try to do. He just. I thought, man, I'm gonna have to price it too cheap. But anyway, I priced it for what I felt like I needed to get out of it, and I was happy and still happy, and and I know he's happy, and well, anyway, he says, "I'll give you $500 more if you'll deliver it to my house." And I said, "Well, where do you live at?" And he said, "I live in Abington, Virginia." And he said, "Do you know where that's at?" I said, "Yeah, I absolutely do." I said, "Just right above Bristol." And he said, "Yeah." And so I knew it wasn't that far from when we're in Pigeon Forge. It's not that far. So I looked it up on my phone. Is 117 miles at his house. I said, "What time you want me to be up there?" And he said, "Just in the morning at some time." And I said, "Okay, I'll be there with it." But anyway, so we go in there and we sit down and start doing the paperwork on it. And he pulls his bill. He said, "I got $5,000 with me, and he said, "When you deliver it in the morning, I'll pay you the rest of it." I said, "That'll be fine." And, so he opens his billfold, and when he did, um, he just opened it and just laid it on the table right there and pulled his money out and laid it on the table. Well, when he did, there was a badge on his billfold, and, of course, that got my attention. Not that I did anything wrong, it was all legal, but it was looking at it, and I thought, "Ooh," and then I got to reading on it, and it said, IRS, Internal Revenue Service. And I thought, "Whoa," and then his wife spoke up. She said, "I told you to take that badge and leave it at home." So that intimidates people when they see that. And I said, "Well, I'm not intimidated by it." I said, "I'm probably more curious than I am anything." And, uh, and he said, "I didn't work for the IRS." He said, "I work for the Secret Service." He said, "But Secret Service is a department in how we get paid, and anyway, it was part of the IRS." And so anyway, that's how his badge was IRS, but it was and at the bottom of it, it did say Secret Service. And I said, "That is amazing to me. That I just got all kinds of questions and stuff." And he said, and so we sit there probably another hour or so just talking, about different things and stuff. And so he said, "Tomorrow when you come to my house," he said, "bring the truck up." He said, "I got a lot of memorabilia and things of that nature that I'll show you. And if you're interested." I said, "I'm telling you, I love history and love all that." And so he got to telling me. He said, he said, "I started out my career in the Army, from what I understand, and in the Green Beret in 1962, I think he said, and he went through his career that way, and then when it came time, he retired from the military. Well, let me back up. He went from the Green Berets and then went into Special Forces that way too, and then at least this is what he told me. And then he went in when he retired, he moved over into Secret Service, and I don't know if he retired or if I'm not sure how that worked. He didn't really wasn't clear about it, but either way, he ended up in the IRS. I mean, in the Secret Service. And so he told me, he said, I was in there quite some time, and he said, but the two big ones that I'll tell you about and show you about tomorrow. He said, um I was in Secret Service for all of 4 years of Jimmy Carter, and he said the first 3 years of Reagan, he said I was on the detail of the president, on Carter and of Ronald Reagan. He said, my last 5 years of Ronald Reagan, he was there 8. And he said, my last 5 years, he said, I was over the Secret Service of the White House. And he said the White House detail, and he said I was over that, and I said, that's amazing. I said, that's a big time job. And he said, well, he says it's a bigger job than people would think. And I said, I bet I can only imagine. I said, that's all I can do. I said, I can't even really comprehend. I've been to the White House a couple of times, but I said, I can't even comprehend the responsibility that you had. And he said, tomorrow, he said, I'll share a lot of that with you tomorrow. I said, well, I'm looking forward to it. So anyway, they end up leaving and going home, and I loaded the truck back up and put it on the trailer and went back to the hotel, and I didn't sleep good. I just gonna be honest with you. I thought about that all evening and then on into the night, and got up the next morning early and started driving up there, and I mean, I was like a kid. The excitement, I love that kind of stuff anyway, and so, uh, I get up there and we unload the truck and they look it over and he had not even drove it. He hadn't drove it down there, and he didn't drive it down at his house. He asked me, would I unload it and would I put it in the garage? And I said, absolutely. And he'd never had drove it. So when I left there, he had still not drove it. But he knew. I wouldn't tell him the story, and I just wouldn't do that. And he knew that. And so anyway, we get it put in the garage and everything. And so he said, "You got a few minutes?" I said, "I got all day." I said, "I've got all day." I said, "I'm in no rush." I said, "Today," I said, "I've been so excited about getting up here and getting a chance to sit and listen to you tell your stories about this." I said, "Because I'm intrigued about that." And he said, "Well," and so I go into their house, and they just built a brand new, it was very beautiful, actually, a brand new barn dominium, and it was beautiful. I'm talking, first one of those I had been in like that. It was huge and had a big, nice garage, and then they had a pantry built in there that was just amazing. I mean, it was like a room you walk into, and there's a pantry. Same way with a closet in there, because it was older couple and it was just them. So the bedroom and then the closet was like another room, like a whole nother room. And I thought, man, my wife would love this. And anyway, it was just a really nice concept the way they had it set up, and it's beautiful. And it sit on up on a kind of a knoll hill, and pasture all the way around it. It was beautiful, beautiful setting up there. And anyway, we while walking, and they showed me through the house and showed me, and I loved that. And then we go in and sit down at the kitchen table, and he had already had his books out, and he had a bunch of pictures out, and we sit there, and he started telling me stories, story after story after story, and it was just like, man, I was just I was taken back. I mean, I love that kind of stuff, and he got to tell me. But the story that I'm gonna feed into y'all, or tell into y'all, that he told me that really spoke to me, and was that he said that his first deal with at the White House with Jimmy Carter, he said Jimmy Carter was a good man. He said Jimmy Carter was a great man. Actually, he said a nice man, uh, a man of faith, and all. Said the problem he had, he said, and at least in my opinion, and he said history kind of shows this, but he said he had a problem. He said he had to be the smartest man in the room. He went to college and became I believe he got an engineering degree, I believe is what he told me. And anyway, he said he was a very intelligent man, but he said the problem with it was is he was going to be the smartest man in the room, so he ended up surrounding himself with some pretty crazy, pretty stupid people, or at least this is what he said. I don't know any of them, so other than just what we know on TV, but history kind of shows all that he didn't have a lot of good advice from outside. Um, but he said, "Don't take me wrong," because this is the way he told it. He said he was a good man. He said, and he said, but every night, when he'd go up to the residence in the White House, he said he would have an armful of uh, folders and notes and things of that nature, files, and he said he'd have an armful, and he said he would go upstairs and stay the rest of the night studying those files and those notes, about the meetings that he's gonna have the next day. So he wanted to make sure he was on top of everything that was gonna be the next day. And he said it overwhelmed him. He said he didn't sleep good. He didn't, he just it overwhelmed him because he was gonna be the smartest man in the room, and he's gonna know. Um, he wanted to know a lot, the way this guy said, but he said really when it ended up, he knew a little bit about all of them, but he didn't know anything about anything. And he said, and it frustrated him, and it bothered him a whole lot. And I thought, well, and he's telling all this, and history shows all that, when you look back at it, and then you look toward the end, with Iran just stepping all over him and taking our hostages, and that was, I was a senior in high school when that was going on, and caused us to have to register for the draft, and kind of put fear in a lot of people, and so it was along in that time. And he said he got a bad rap as far as being, the people thinking of him being the worst president and all that kind of stuff. He says he really was not a bad person at all. He said actually I enjoyed my time around him, but he said that was his mo. He said he just was going to be the smartest man in the room, and felt like he was, and was going to be. And he said it was such an amazing change. He said when Reagan got elected, he said when Reagan came in, he said I was 3 years on his detail, on the president's detail before he took over the whole White House. And he said he was amazing because he said he would be telling you. He said that I know I'm not the smartest man. He said, "There's no way I'm the." He said, "I make movies for a living." He said, he said that you don't take a genius to make movies. He said, "But I'm smart enough to know that when you're making decisions and things of this nature, you surround yourself with smart people." And boy, he got my attention when he started talking like this because I was 20 years in politics myself, and I'm not. I don't brag about that. That's not something to brag about, but it just I spent 20 years, 16 in Rangeville and 4 pals, and it's amazing when you look back at those times and just my time in that. The best leaders that I ever worked for, with people who surrounded themselves and give you a chance to be who you are. You know what I'm saying? Roy Sanderson. I'll just use as a good example. Roy and Nathaniel both as mayors were fantastic because Roy was one of those kind of guys that he would look for your strengths and then he'd look for your weaknesses too. And so he would try to get you in positions that the things that you run and things that you maintain, things that you would be responsible for. He was really good about that. And probably one of the best leaders I've ever seen because he had a compassion about him. He could have as much compassion to say no as he did yes. And how many people can't do that? I mean, in this world today, especially, nobody wants to say no. Nobody wants to tell anybody no for anything because people don't accept no. And I'm gonna tell you, Roy had a way about that you knew whenever he asked you something, or you ask him back and say that I want to do it like this, and if his conviction wasn't there and he just didn't feel like it, he'd say, Roger, I think you need to do it this way. He wouldn't just flat out look at me and say no like that. It was not That's not the way he handled it. He handled it in a way real professional, real, but it taught me a big lesson about that. That's compassion about a no in the same way with a yes. We all want to say yes. We all want to make everybody happy all the time. But life ain't like that. In all reality, life ain't like that. And so he was a great leader for our local stuff, or at least from my time when I was there. And I'm gonna tell you, you can see Rainsville today. It's had good leadership all the way through. In my opinion, I mean, it's still got good leadership, and it's growing and doing good. And I've got a podcast coming up here just in a short in the next few days. Well, I don't know when we'll get it aired, but we're going to film it with the police chief and stuff because there's some really good news about Rainsville and stuff like that through that. So I had asked him, would he come join? He said, absolutely. So we're going to be doing that here pretty quick. We'll be filming that pretty quick. But let me get back to my story with the White House. But anyway, he said that when President Reagan came in, he said one of the first things he said is, I don't have to be the smartest man in the room. I'll never be the smartest man in the room. He said, but I promise you, this cabinet that we've put together here will be the smartest people that you'll ever work with and be around. So he said, I expect you to people. Now he's talking to his detail and the people at the White House. I expect you to be everything you're supposed to be around these people and stuff like that. And he said, of course, with us, that's our job and that kind of thing, and so he said it was a very good meeting, that first one and stuff. And he said from that day, and he said, I was with him for 8 years. He said 3 of them was on his detail, and then the 5 of them was over the White House itself, and he was there, when he was there. And, he said that day, that first day, he said, "I never saw him in 8 years take a file up the stairs going up to the residence." He said when he left off the Oval Office and he went down, when he said goodnight to everybody and he started up them stairs, he had one thing in mind, and that was being a husband to his wife and relaxing and enjoying life. And he said he was amazing about that. And he said every morning for the 8 years he was there, the days he was there, he said there was days that was gone, and a lot of times they'd be, but he said, I'm sure those 5 years that I had to stay at the White House when they'd fly to Russia or wherever. He said, before that, the 3 years, he said he was always the same. He said he always walk in and tell the pilots thank you and I appreciate what you do. But he said every morning for 8 years, he said that I saw. He said spoke to me, and he said I've never forgot it and will never forget it. He said for 8 years, he said every morning when he walked down them stairs, he would walk to every employee in that White House, every one of them, from the gardeners to the cooks to the housekeeping to all of them. He said everybody. He said he went around every morning before he went to the Oval Office. He said, and he would tell them, thank you for what you do, because he said what you do is just as important as what I'm doing and what I do. It takes all of us to make this work. And he said, "It doesn't work without it." He said, "We have to have each other, and we got to lean on one another." And he said, "And what you do means something, and I just want to tell you thank you." He said he done it every day, and it never got old. He said it was amazing how he enjoyed doing that. He enjoyed going and seeing and talking to people. And I'm gonna tell you, it spoke to me. It spoke to me in a way that when he started telling that, because you see how he handled things. I mean, history shows him too. In my opinion, that because I was young, I'd just come out of high school and you know, interest rates is high, gas is high. You know how all that was back in those days, and he started getting things changed, and things were happening, and you know, and we got our hostages back before he ever even took office. It was amazing how that happened. And tell him, I said, I said, for me, always, I believed that he put the stars and stripes back on the flag. I mean, that's how patriotic I think, or at least that's the way I looked at him anyway. Wasn't whether he was Republican or Democrat. I wasn't a matter to me. I was raised Republican, but my family was, but I didn't know really the difference at that point. I hadn't been involved in all that, the conservative and the liberal and the left and the right. I just hadn't. I mean, when you're young like that, you start growing. Um, so I kept listening to him talk and about all them kind of things, and it sure brought back memories and to me and how I was, and then I seen how God started my steps and where I've been and the things that happened in my life. And I get to looking back at all that and then thinking, man, a lot of that is leadership. I mean, it's leadership. Um, and it spoke to me in a way that when a man knows that it takes all of us. I don't have to be the smartest man in the room. I'm not. But we're going to surround ourselves with. That was an amazing statement, and he did that, and so anyway, that really spoke to me, and I spent the whole day there with him, uh, going through books and different pictures and every one of them, and then it fit me to a T because I like stories. I love to tell stories. I like to I love being a fly on the wall and hearing stories like that. I could just sit there and listen to them all day and did. And I didn't get back till way late, back to Pigeon Forge, but I sure enjoyed it and I never forgot it. And it's a story that I wanted to share on here because it means something. It means something in our day-to-day lives. It means something as a mom and dad. It means something as a grandparent. Um, it means something as a church member. If you're a pastor of a church, it really means something that how you lead and the leadership role that you take, and then how you let people um how you let people go. What I'm saying is if you delegate, you can't hold on to everything. You got to delegate. You got to delegate things out sometimes to people, and then count on them to be able to handle it. The thing about it is we have to teach them, or they have to be known that you put people in positions that know how to do those things. It's their strengths that you have to look for. That's what he was talking about, and that's what the witness that I had, the experience I had with Roy and Nathaniel being the mayors that I had, the two that was amazing. Of course, we had a good council, but all that time I felt like strong council with everybody got along, and wasn't that we didn't disagree about things, but we had that mindset, and I loved it, and I still try to carry that today. We need to learn how to agree to disagree. There's things that we're just not going to be on the same page about certain things and this and that. But you know what? You don't let that be a dividing factor between you and people. Just say, well, that's just the way you believe it, and this is the way I believe it. But I'm gonna love you anyway. I'm gonna love you anyhow, and I hope you love me anyhow. But I don't agree with that. I don't. But that's just the way I see that, and I think that's the way they handle that, and I think that's the message for me. I come out of that. That's what happened for me. I felt like that was the lesson the Lord wanted me to get out of that was, that I'm not going to ever be the smartest. I'm just not. But I just want to do my part. What He leads me to do, because He does it in a small, still voice. and that's what the Bible says, and He'll speak to you in that spot, and we need to be listening to that voice. My problem for me all my life, um, if He would have been trying to talk to me in that spot, He could have used a freight train and I wouldn't have heard it. I was so busy in life chasing after this, that, and doing my thing, and thought I was doing the right things and stuff like that, and there's no way that I would have ever heard that small still voice at that point. So He had to slow me down, and boy did He ever. And that's kind of that message that He had. The one had to be the smartest, and so everything was, and it turned into be a mess. And the other one says, "Well, wait a minute. I'm not the smartest. I'm gonna delegate this out so we can all work on this together." And it kind of simplified things, and look how good it worked, and I think we could do that more. We need to look at that more as far as the church and our homes and businesses that we own, the things like that. We need to learn how to find people's strengths and put and utilize them, because people like to do things that a lot of times people won't because they're not asked, or they get upset because they're not asked. And you know, um, as a pastor, I'm not a pastor, but if I was, I would want to think that I would take these kind of lessons and look for people's strengths, and especially in the leadership roles of the church. That you need people in your choir. Well, you need somebody who knows something about music, and you really need to get the best one that you got that knows how to address the music. Worship is another whole another thing, as a worship leader. Um, the music is one thing, but worship is another thing. It don't have to be always about music for worship. Because worshiping Him sometimes can be just a conversation between you and Him, and giving Him honor and loving on Him that way. And that to me, that's part of worship too. But having a worship leader that knows how to lead that. Most of the time, we look at that as a worship leader is heading up the music and trying to get people uh, connected, or. But it ain't always got to be like that. And a pastor, I think, I'm here again. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to do anything. I'm just telling you a story that happened in my life. But that's kind of the message I got out of that. But I think there's good advice in that. I think that there's some good stuff in that we need to be looking for people's strengths. And what's a shame is we tend to look at people's weaknesses and forget the strengths. We want to criticize them for their weaknesses, and 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 I'm sorry, but that's true. And I've been guilty of it. We've all been guilty of it if we be honest about it. But that message, that that day that I got to go up there and I got to listen to that man, that is what I come home with. That is looking for the positive, and I just put my testimony on here just the other day, and I hope a bunch of you got to hear that, and you'll see why I smile all the time. What God's done for me, you know. Uh, and I'll be spending the rest of my life doing that, because every day is a testimony. Every day is adding to that. Every day, this podcast is an add to that. And I get so excited about this to tell a story about what God's done and the goodness He's done for me and my family. And I always tell them, if you can do it for me, do it for you. So but these stories like this, there's a ton of these. I mean, I got bukus of these like this that the Lord's led me to, and coming out of that, you look for the answer, because there's always an answer in that. There's a reason why I got to go there. There's a reason why, it's not by happenstance. It wasn't by chance. It wasn't anything like that. I believe that it was orchestrated, and because I've used that a lot in my mind and my thoughts, and I try now to, when I get asked a question, or need to make a big decision about something, I tend not to jump on it, and just instantly give my opinion, or I still give opinion, but I try to roll that back a little bit, and seek what the Lord has for me in that. And boy, I'll tell you what, that's been a big asset. That's been a big help to me to do that, because I found that every time that I make a quick decision on something, it turns around and bites me. And I just don't want to do that. So I don't want to get out in front of things. I don't want to so I just start praying now. I pray, Lord, you know, what'll give you honor? you know, what'll help my family, what'll help the church, you know, what'll help the kingdom. These are things that's all important to me now, and should be important to all of us, but it's really important to me now in my life and where I'm at, and where He's taken me and my family, and where He wants us all to go. But it's important to me, and so that's how I take that, and that story just, we're gonna have some pictures of that truck and all that will drop in this, and I hope you got something out of that. For me, it was a very good one because I really enjoy. First of all, I enjoy history, as I've already said that, but I love that, and I love the conversation, and I love the comparison. The way he made it was amazing. He wasn't trying to down one part down, and he was showing me their strengths and their weaknesses, and I thought, man, and I thought, I need to learn that. I need to operate in that, and then it made me identify the people in my life, past and present, that are that way. And that's the reason I want to give credit to the ones that I served with back in the day, on the city. The mayor uh, is is the chief executive officer of the town in a small town like Rainsville, and there's a lot of responsibility comes along with that. But the biggest thing is delegating it out. There's, when you're not a full-time mayor, you need to delegate that each department out and things like that, and you can't just do that because it's your buddy. If you're doing it just because it's your buddy, or you're not doing it because you don't like somebody or because you disagree with them politically, you're messing up. You're not doing right by the people that put you there. To serve, we're serving the people. This is, and every decision you make ain't gonna affect everybody the same way, but the job is to try to affect everybody in the positive as much as possible, and get as many as you can. I remember with me, just a quick story with this, but I was over the roads and the sanitation. That was my two, the trucking part of it, and I knew how to buy and work on trucks, and so the sanitation was kind of my baby for a long time there, and we automated it. Went to during that time, um, and the paving, it was just amazing, And but he started me out on the police department first, and that didn't go well. It didn't go well for me. I'd been trucking and around that stuff my whole life. A drag race. I like hot rods, and so you can imagine, and I love every one of the police officers. It was great. Billy Ray Williams was the chief at the time. He was awesome. He was a great chief. There was just a lot of red and Ronald McAfee. All these guys they were fantastic to work with. Ke- Uh, um, it was good. Problem is building the 4 lane over around the golf course on 35 is, there was just building that over there, and most of you people that live here know what I'm talking about. And speed limit at that time when it was a 2 lane over through there was 55 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden we start building this 4 lane highway, and they dropped the speed limit to 35 miles an hour, and it was already open. It was a divided 4 lane highway already open, new 35, and y'all know what I'm talking about. But the speed limit they hadn't upped yet, and it was still 35 miles an hour. And and the ma the mayor's, telling them, said, "You need to be working that area over there." And I'm telling the guys, "No, you don't need to be doing that. That's fee grabbing. I don't believe in all that." I said, "I believe it like this." I said, "I think everybody deserves a break until they don't. And there's nobody knows how to do that except for that officer that's out there. He's the man or woman that's out there and faces that every day. And somebody pulls somebody over, and you get hateful or smart, chances are you can get a break. But if you treat them with respect and be who you're supposed to be, chances are, you know, unless they've been having a bad day, most of 'em I know tend to give people a break. But anyway, what got me changed is when the chief. I mean, I had told them all. I met with all of them. I told them. I said, we got to quit that. I said, this 35 miles. I said, we're fixing to raise that up, and it's fixing to be 65 miles an hour. I said, and we're giving people tickets for 35 miles an hour. And I said, and it's already opened up. I said, mm-mm, no, we don't need to be doing that. And needless to say, that was my last day of being over the police department. Uh, and I got moved to to the street department and sanitation and the trucks because my strengths were in that, the backhoe and all the equipment and stuff like that. I knew, and so it was a very smart move actually, because I didn't have the mentality, which I still don't agree with feet grabbing. I still don't agree with using something like that to take advantage of your people in town. That's not what it's about. Um, it's not. But I understood too, though that was not my strength, and and um, and so I got put in that, and I spent 16 years over the street department. And one of the things I'm most proudest of is in that 16 years we went from having not all, but most tire and gravel roads and some dirt roads and stuff. So when we left, and at the end of it, that we had every street in Rainsville was plant mixed. And I'm gonna tell you, there's a big difference in riding on plant mixed roads and then riding on tire and gravel. And I was very proud of that. But that was the strength that. But it took all. It was not something that I did on my own. And now it's not. I'm not trying to say that. It took all of us sitting at that table to agree and work together on choosing what roads and that thing and knowing which roads and not trying to duplicate something and go back over. So anyway, the story that I told earlier kind of leads into that because I look back at my time and I'm gonna be honest with you, there's nothing like serving people. There's nothing like being, I love that. Um, and the reason that I got out of it, I guess, I got beat. I run for mayor, but I had already decided that I was not going to run back as councilman. My business was running wide open, and I was busy as a bee. And then I run for mayor, and didn't have no business doing that at the time. It was not the right time. It was not something that I needed to do. I just felt like that's just a long story, but anyway, um, I don't have no regrets. I look back at that time, and it was a growing time for me, but I'm proud of where Rainsville grew. We built the sports complex. We got the agri center. We worked on that for years. I mean, and when I saying these things, this is not this. I mean, this was the whole group for years, and I'm proud of all that because we've done a lot of work and a lot of things, and did it without a lot of controversy. We never was in the news and the papers and never was jumping up and down on the table and slapping the table and threatening people. It was never like that. It was always pleasant, and you look forward to coming because you knew there was gonna be work to do, and then you go back in your departments and take care of that, and I loved it. That part of it worked great. Seems to be doing that now. I'm not really involved in it anymore other than I love all the guys that's there. I know them all, and they're all good people, every one of them. And now it's elections coming up, and I know the people who's running, and every one of them's good. So Rhinesville's gonna be fine, and Sylvania's gonna be fine, and this community's gonna be fine. I know that, and feel sure of that. But anyway, I'm gonna get off of here. I'm not gonna talk as long as I've been doing. Um, my wife done told me I'm gonna have to learn how to cut it back a little bit because I get a little long winded. I can't help it. I love this. I love being able to share this stuff. God shared it with me, let me be a part of it, and I just want you to be a part of it. I want to be able to give it to you like it was given to me, and let's share this thing, and maybe somebody gets something out of it. I'd really like to see some comments. We got the Facebook page up. It's Real Barn Talk Podcast is the way it's listed. Real Barn Talk podcast, is the way it's listed. And, put some comments in there, questions, anything like that you got that a story that you want to, maybe it's something that we've been a part of or something, would love to do and we'll talk about. I got quite a few people lined up coming in, to do some episodes and I'm really excited about that. Um, got some really good stuff coming, and I think you're going to thoroughly enjoy, and I hope you do. I know I'm already excited about it, and hadn't even recorded it yet, but I'm excited. So anyway, I just want you to know that from the Wiggly family and from the Barn at Blue Pond, we love everybody. We love y'all. Um, if you hadn't got a church that's open on Sunday nights or Wednesday nights, that's when we have service. You're welcome to come up here. Um, you know, we pray for the liberty that's what where there's liberty, the Lord can work and do. Uh, and we're not going to check love at the door. It's going to be, and so you're welcome to come and be a part and enjoy that. Because that's really what this is all about is giving God honor and the Lord, because He's the one that's done it for us and stuff. So anyway, but I just want you to know that I love you and appreciate you, and thank you for listening to me. Thank you for joining this thing. That's really been overwhelming how many people's already joined this, and I'm excited about that. Got some other things they working on. I need to tell this because the YouTube page is coming along. They're getting that together, the TikTok and all that, and then I got some stuff that and got some offer that I've got to go back and talk with some TV stuff that they that we can put this on, that they're wanting to put this on, and so they asked about that, and so we're going to be talking about that and talking with them, and so I'm excited about every opportunity right there, because anytime I can share what God's done and the goodness there, it's going to help somebody, because everybody goes through things, and if some of the things that we've been through can help somebody, then that's all about it. It's not about money, it's not about fame, or because this is all about all of us. It's just, I just seem to be the one, getting to be fortunate to talk to you. But, I really do wish you know, some kind of comments of something you'd be interested in talking about or hearing about. And I sure would love to share it with you. So anyway, I just want you to know we love you again, and y'all have a great night and a great week, and we'll get this thing dropped out 6 o'clock on Tuesday nights. Right now, that's the time, and I like to do some midweek stuff. You might see along that we do a drop, during the week. I did that with my testimony the other day. I was burning, and then I wanted to get that out, and so there'll be some stuff that we'll probably do that along, and if you want more, then you just let me know. But or if you want less, then let me know that too. But anyway, I'm gonna get off here. I'm gonna push now, but I love y'all. See you soon. Take care. Bye.
Out here where the hay meets the sky, Roger's got stories you can't deny. Faith, family, and everyday grind. Pull up the seat, you'll find peace of mind. Barn talk, where the truth takes a stroll. Life's little lessons with a heart full of soul. From sunrise chores to the good Lord's plan, it's Roger's Barn Talk. Pull up, my friend. The rooster crows and the coffee brews, sharing the faith that's some hard-earned news. Every hammer swing, every prayer sign, Roger's here to talk life, yours and mine. Barn Talk, where the truth takes a stroll. Life's little lessons with a heart full of soul. From sunrise chores to the good Lord's plan, it's Roger's Barn Talk. Pull up, my friend. Just lend an ear. Patchwork stories and lessons unfold. Barn Talk's a treasure worth more than gold. Barn Talk, where the truth takes a stroll. Life's little lessons with a heart full of soul. From sunrise chores to the good Lord's plan, it's Roger's Barn Talk. Pull up, my friend.